Does your anxiety snowball towards a mental disaster when life doesn't go according to plan? It's always your fault. It's never going to change. Life's as good as over. That sort of thing. If so, this is for you. Because when life serves up curveballs, knowing how to counter your worrying self-talk is one of the most important skills you can have. And this is more than being positive. It's about understanding the mechanics of that radio station inside your head. Hi everyone, I'm Dominic Decker, a registered therapist and your support for the calm and confident future you want. Today, we're going to correct every anxious person's 3 fatal mistakes. So here's a question for you. What do National League Baseball teams that make a comeback in the final stages of a game have in common with people who can stay positive and composed when life gets bumpy? Well, quite a lot. According to modern psychology, and knowing this connection will dramatically improve your day-to-day well-being, ability to handle challenges, and approach to worry in general. We're talking about your explanatory styles. Now, explanatory styles refer to how you explain life's events to yourself, the things that happen to and around you. Because when life gets rocky, your explanatory style can calm or agitate your stress response. It's the difference between cascading towards calamity or remaining focused for success when times are tough. Martin Seligman, a professor of psychology, studied the performance of players and managers in Major League Baseball and players and coaches in the National Basketball Association, and he uncovered a chunk of mental gold. Seligman discovered that optimistic teams, groups of players with a positive view of the group's performance, were far better placed to improve under pressure than pessimistic teams. These teams comprise groups of players who are down on themselves and quickly give up when the going gets tough. It's not surprising that positive people generally do better, but being positive alone won't help unless you understand the patterns that inform how you talk to yourself, because you can't just turn on being positive, can you? Besides, it feels fake, shallow, and somehow disconnected when you try. But you can become more optimistic, because optimism is a skill you can learn. And those that do have a real head start on tackling excess worry, so it's a habit worth having. Now, when you face adverse or challenging events, you react not to the event itself, but rather to how you feel about what's happened. So for instance, imagine there's someone you fancy. Getting knocked back might be no big deal for one person, yet for another, rejection will bring about an outsized blow that discourages them from asking someone out again. So there is a choice, but it helps to be aware of how these choices are made. Sometimes called the 3 Ps, these choices define the radio station inside your head when things don't go according to plan. The 3 Ps stand for the following: how personally we take events, how pervasive or wide-reaching we think the consequences of an adverse event will be, and lastly, how permanent or long-lasting we believe the impact of challenging circumstances will be. Well, let's get an overview before adding some real-life context. Your personal explanatory style relates to whether you explain events as your fault, the fault of those around you, or the wider world. So think of this as having an internal or external way of explaining things. You have an internal style if you believe something is all your fault, or an external style if you think that what happens is likely incidental, or perhaps the doing of other people, or some other outside factor that isn't within your control. The second P stands for pervasive. Now this concerns whether you believe what happens to you will affect a small part of your life or a lot. In other words, can you file the effect of an unfortunate event away, or does it domino into wider reaching consequences across different areas of your life? The third explanatory style concerns how long you believe the effects will last, and this P means permanent. Do you think the consequences of tough times will be lifelong and enduring? Or, despite setbacks, do you imagine your life evolving and moving on in time? Well, these 3 Ps define how you interpret life's adverse events, the way you explain and understand your hardships. Suppose you view adverse events as personal shortcomings with wide-reaching and long-lasting effects. In that case, you prime yourself for worry and stress. But equally, suppose you believe that difficulties are a normal part of life and you've managed to remain focused on what you have. In that case, you're more likely to stay calm and recover. Or would you benefit from being more of an optimist? If so, here's an exercise to assess where things are for you right now. What sounds better? Let's start with how personally you take things. A. Do you agonise over what you did wrong when a friend doesn't return your call? Might you think you aren't important enough for her to bother with? Or she has something better to do, and besides, why should you deserve an explanation? Or do you think something unexpected must have come up, so it slipped her mind and she'll probably call later? B. If you organise a get-together that doesn't go to plan, do you assume it's your fault for some reason? Maybe you chose the wrong spot for people to meet, or you weren't sensitive enough to everyone's needs. Perhaps you didn't think of something interesting enough for everyone. Do you worry about it afterwards and feel that people won't want to spend time with you again? Or do you decide that your friends didn't make enough effort for their own experience? Maybe the venue you chose wasn't brilliant, but it was at least good enough if people were up for it. And it was a shame that someone or others didn't make more of a social effort. Now, how pervasive or wide-reaching do you believe the impact of events will be? Suppose your relationship with a spouse or partner ended. Would you lose motivation to meet friends and pay less attention than usual to your family's needs? Or would you lose interest in the job that you usually enjoy? Would you feel that your whole life was ruined and agonise over what will become of you? Or, while devastated, would you remain grateful for the other life advantages and emotional support from relationships with friends or children? Or would you be able to remind yourself of everything you have to help you through this challenging time? If you were to lose your job, would you think your whole life was in crisis and the end was nigh? Or would this drain the colour completely out of everything you usually enjoy, such as hobbies or time with loved ones? Might you withdraw from social company and become self-absorbed? Or would you be shocked and upset but still draw comfort from everything else working well, such as good health and friendships, and then think practically about what to do next? And finally, how permanent or enduring do you think the effects of events will be? So if you've had a breakup of a much valued relationship, did you think this was your last chance at love? Or if the current relationship ended, would you believe it was forever irreplaceable? Or would you grieve and then gradually become open to finding someone new? If you underperformed in a career advancing exam, would you feel you had ruined your chances forever? Or would you brush up on your weaker areas and retake the exam? Or even decide that you might be better suited to something else and explore your options? Suppose you had frequent yes replies to the pessimistic responses. In that case, you may view hardships as personal, pervasive, and permanent. So how did you get on? While anxious thinking is the product of emotional arousal, the explanatory styles feed worry because they generate added emotion, leading to further distress. If you believe life's inevitable road bumps spell personal disaster, you'll remain locked into anguish, because things in life are rarely perfect. So let's package what we've covered into 5 concrete steps you can start taking now. And quickly, you can get a wonderful colour reminder of these vital steps via my anxiety toolkit. So if you find the following helpful, come and check out my toolkit afterwards. It's helping people right now. Link in the description. Step 1. To combat excess self-blame, you have to give yourself due credit now and then. When something positive happens for you, stop to analyse your thought process for a moment. Think of all the strengths and how you contributed directly and indirectly to make the event occur. For example, if you aced a test, don't just think of how great it is that you prepared, but also how your intelligence and dedication played a role. Recognise your efforts with the same degree of care you would show a loved one. You should offer yourself frequent credit when things run well. And step 2, keep an eye on future success. You want to consider how your strengths can bring about other good things in the future. Or consider different areas of your life that could be affected by positive developments. What future possibilities might come about as a result? For instance, how can the strengths that led to a good test result bring about other beneficial events in your life? Or what other good things can come from your intelligence, dedication, and ability to prepare for tests and tasks effectively? Step 3. Minimise the negative when it's realistic to do so. So when adverse events occur, you should consider the outside circumstances that might have contributed to this coming about. For example, if you do poorly on an exam, were you especially busy the week before, or were you overly distracted or sleep deprived? What outside circumstances contributed to an underperformance? Now remember that a disappointing outcome doesn't always constitute personal weakness. I don't mean you should avoid personal responsibility, but at a minimum, you need to give yourself some room to improve things for next time. Step 4, give yourself specific explanations when things go wrong. In other words, you need focused reasons to understand when things don't work out. Well, imagine someone at college or work has been out of order and given you a public dressing down. If afterwards you say to yourself, "I'm not surprised that happened to me, I'm a doormat," I never stand up for myself, now there's a good chance that your attention will turn to other times you felt humiliated or embarrassed to confirm that you are a doormat. Now, this is the pervasive effect creeping in. You focus on one event to draw a much broader conclusion about who you are, and all because someone else didn't have the skills to communicate effectively. Well, that's just not fair. Step 5. Always lock events in their time and place. Imagine you fumble a presentation at college or work. If you use a permanent explanatory style, you might say, how can I ever do another presentation? It's bound to go wrong again. Now, as well as fortune telling, this is hugely unhelpful and will leave you dreading the next presentation. So instead, you should remind yourself that you could have prepared better and you've learned a few things that will help you do it differently for next time. And then think through what these changes should be. So adopting this attitude gives you a sense of hope that things can be different and that you can affect change. Locking events in their time and place gives you a sense of focus and control. Okay, so listen, look, now I need your help because, you see, I went on a date last week. I've sent several follow-up messages, but I haven't received a response. So I've been driving off a mental cliff with all sorts of personal, pervasive and permanent thinking. So what do you think I should be saying to myself? Share in the comments and let me know, seriously, because I need your advice like yesterday. See you soon.